New unit within the British Council which focuses on cultural skills. Then there'll be another presentation from Dr. Bayono from Senior Voctech in Brunei, talking about research that he's led across the ASEAN region looking at transversal skills. And then we'll move into an activity that we'd like to ask all of you to take part in. And before we begin, I wonder if I could ask for a quick show of hands as to the different sectors that people are from. So would you mind raising your hand if you're here from government or from a Ministry of Education? Thank you very much. I shall hand over to Simon and Sarah for the presentation.
What we're going to try and talk you through is something that is about the cultural sector, but it's applicable to any sector that you're actually working in. My background is from the UK Skills Council that looked after the cultural sector and developed a lot of the first standards in the cultural sector. And we've taken that work into the British Council, and we're going to present a case study of how we have constructed our international work, how we've used research, and how we've used an approach to transversal skills and partnership development with the vocational education sector to do our work. So this is a model that we've done. So we're going to kick off. Wow, that's nice. So just a quick bit about the cultural sector itself. I could probably spend the next 3 hours talking to you about different definitions of the cultural sector. So I'll try and keep it relatively simple. So we started off with getting a very simple definition of the work that we actually do. And then the second thing we did was to look at developing quite a lot of research. And global research at that, because the cultural sector suffered from not having any detailed research in the areas that we were looking at. Sarah, do you want to talk about the research?
Yeah, so we'll be showing you some more detailed slides around the research we did, but it was really important for us to understand the skills gaps and shortages that existed across the cultural sector, so all the industries that were listed in the previous slide. From that research, we wanted to then do something practical. So we developed partnerships and we decided to prototype certain products and programs that can meet those needs and those gaps. We then monitor and evaluate. It's piloted. We want to pilot something, test it, make sure that it's fit for purpose for industry and education, and then we market test, and if it's successful, we go into wider program development. And we do this in the 7 global regions that the British Council works in.
So as you can probably gather, it's quite a big challenge. Somebody says, here's the world, here's vocational education, and here's the cultural sector. Sort it out, Simon. Big challenge, but we'll show you what the research, how we put the research together, and then what the research actually started to show us as well. So as I said, these are some of the issues that came up at this morning's sessions as well around vocational education, which are particularly pertinent to our sector, but applicable to other sectors as well. And we're really trying to identify how we can, I can't remember which speaker it was this morning, plug the right skills into the right people, how we can make education and industry work much more closely together and equip people with the right skills to be successful. Wow, it's gone blank, okay?
Sorry, wait, there's this one as well.
So this is, the first research that we did was actually in the British Council areas called East Asia. We selected 4 countries that we were going to work in. Initially just pilots around Indonesia, Hong Kong,
Burma and Singapore. But before we did that, we actually looked at doing a piece of research in the UK to assess the current provision of cultural skills within the UK and the demand for international partnerships. So our research objectives, really important to set some objectives at the beginning. What is the landscape? Who's involved in vocational education provision, training provision for the cultural sector in the UK? How successful are their initiatives? How applicable can they be to other parts of the world? And what is the landscape for internal facing, so kind of bringing benefit back to the UK as well? In terms of our key findings in the UK, we were provided with a kind of subsector by subsector overview, initiatives aimed at linking education to employment, so apprenticeships, paid internships, and then also characteristics of successful international operators as well. It was really important for us to understand what external organisations might need from the British Council in terms of developing successful international partnerships as well. And also differing business models. The cultural sector, as a lot of you may know, can be it's made up of very small businesses. Two speakers earlier from Ford and from the other industry bodies, from Rolls-Royce, I think I'm quite envious of them in a way, because they have the capacity to maybe plug in with education in a way that the cultural sector find it more difficult.
I think it was also quite interesting that the different business models kind of equated directly with education and the cultural sector. The education institutions, individuals we spoke to were very keen on developing a commercial business model, whereas the cultural sector wanted government to pay for everything. I'm generalising massively, but I think, yeah, you see Winston as a generalisation. So this is the research I was just telling you about in Singapore, Hong Kong. And similarly, we've just commissioned research in Europe as well. And even though they're very different global regions, there's a certain similarity, a certain theme starting to emerge in the research that we're doing. This is what we asked about. What is the need for the cultural skills offer? Can we bring anything to the table between education and industry as well? Who are the key players again within a given region? And then where we can actually set that value. The methodology that we used was mainly constructed on doing over 100 interviews in each country. Spent 3 months in each country. It was a huge kind of research project. We then looked at that cross-validating the interviews that we'd done with focus groups, and we ran an online survey as well, and then took it all back and crunched it over a number of weeks as well. These are some of the types of people we actually talked to. So it wasn't just talking to obvious people as well. The cultural sector is it's just a complex area as well.
I think it was really interesting for us for East Asia, and this is something that one of the areas Dr. Parione will talk in more depth about. But these are some of the kind of key findings, and as we do more research, we're finding that there are similar areas of need, which is good. It means that there's a potential for a big global kind of program in terms of skills provision. And also, it's really important to note that a lot of these findings can be applied to any sector. The transversal skills such as leadership, business management, entrepreneurialism, enterprise, all of these skills came up today in this morning's panel.
Yeah, and I think, as I said, the interesting thing is that it works across geography. The transversal skills work across geography, and they work across sector. So even though we're talking about the cultural sector, the research, this instance, Dr. Parione's research as well, will later on show how it cuts across various areas as well. So this is just to give you a flavour of where we're actually going next in terms of developing this research programme, which should hopefully be finished sometime towards the end of next year. So what we want to talk about next is we've got all of this research back, and then what do we actually do with that research? Because we were interested in developing evidence-based policy. How could we use the research to bring partners from education, industry, from government together? And what we did is we sifted a lot of the information and came out with 4 main pillars of work that we wanted to do. And they are, as you see them there. Now, these are slightly artificial creations because policy also cuts across professional development, and professional development cuts across youth. Let me just give you a little bit like a kind of a qualifier in each of these areas so you can hear what we're saying. So, the policy area, it was really around technical assistance. This is where the research was saying there was a demand, where there was a need as well. The second area is what we call it thought leadership, but it can also be, it's about the ideas, the new ideas around what you can do in terms of developing culture and skills. And the final one was about systematic culture and qualifications. And the first place we started working in on this particular policy area and technical assistance is in Burma, which is where this picture is from.
So in terms of professional development, we're looking at how to upskill people who have spent 5, 10, 15 years in their profession, but they need to do some more kind of professional development courses. So we've developed some simple kind of training courses in partnership with industry, delivered both in the UK and regionally, in subsectors, so museums and galleries, theatre, fashion, TV and film. But we've also looked at developing, and this is an example of some of the partners, we've also looked at developing courses in transversal skills, so leadership, entrepreneurship, but for people who are already in the profession, because we have another strand of our work that looks specifically at young people and getting them into employment.
So what you're seeing is the research demonstrated where there was particular skills gaps, skills needs and opportunities. Our job then was to bring together partners from the UK, because we represent cultural relations for the UK, but then identifying key international partners that we could work with as well. The final area was quite interesting, and it's came through incredibly strongly, and it's also not geographically specific, was around how to engage young people, how to bring young people into the workforce, apprenticeships, internships, all of those areas, but also about how you could use skills and culture to inculcate things around social justice, around citizenship, around people becoming active citizens within their society. So our work is incredibly broad. On one side you have these technical skills, how do you become a scene maker for television, right the way across here, but how do you engage young people in a dialogue around social justice using culture as we're doing that. This is a program we're working on in Brazil at the moment. We're working with the Cultural Olympiad in Brazil to develop a skills program for young people from favelas around Rio de Janeiro, using upskilling as a way of actually engaging them and bringing them into a broader participation in civic society.
So just to kind of, I think it's been really, really interesting already this morning seeing the variety of organisations that are represented here, and we're working with very similar organisations for the cultural sector. So I think one of the key messages we wanted to come across, use within our presentation is that the work that we've done, the research, and then implementing that into practical programmes and products can be in any sector. It doesn't just have to be the cultural sector. But this gives you a flavour of the types of organisations we partner with.
I think it's just to say that this is not rocket science for us either. We realise this is relatively simple, it's just that nobody had done it in the UK in this particular way. So we're using research, shape programmes, and then we're delivering the programmes and assessing them and then making sure that they're fit for purpose. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated as well. I think the other thing is, as the research carries on, we're going to end up with quite an interesting piece of work, which is a global assessment of skills within the cultural area as well. So I think we found already people from other sectors have been interested in the research that we've done. People working in tourism, people working in hospitality, people working in logistics, because the sector that we represent impacts on many of these other areas as well. And that's it. Any immediate kind of questions from the audience? We can throw a mic out quickly before we move to Mr. Perrier. We stunned you all into silence. It's fine, thank you very much.
Okay, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for British Council for inviting me to share about research findings on the very important issues that I think at this moment many international organizations discuss about this, many industry talk about this. This morning we shared a lot about this, which is the issue of the skills that in terms of terms people use it differently. The term that we use at this moment, we call it transferable skills, or sometimes we call it transversal skills, or some people might call it life skills, or common skill, employability skills. So those are basically overlapping terms that basically the meaning is about the same. Yeah. Why we consider this skill is very important, because as we know, we discussed this morning that training skill, the technical skill, vocational skills can be done by educational or maybe training institutions. But when we talk about this transferable skill, this is the issue, because the way we teach this, the way we inculcate these skills are very different than the way we inculcate other type of skills. So because of this, we have done a lot of study in terms of the input from the industry, whether these skills are really needed. And many of them saying that these skills either equal or even more important than technical skills. So that's why we would like to put our attentions and energy into how this skill will be integrated in the curriculum, how these skills will be kind of taught or shared, or if you like to say to be taught, if you like to use that term. And the last one, the very challenging one, is also how to assess these skills. But I think this is not the time when we discuss whether these skills are important or not, but now more on how to inculcate these skills and how to assess it. So based on this, we work together with British Council to conduct one research project to 6 CMEO member countries. Maybe some of you not really familiar with CMEO and what CMEO FOCTEC where I'm working at. CMEO actually is an acronym from Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organizations. Similar to ASEAN, ASEAN maybe is more well known because ASEAN is dealing with so many areas including politics, economy. But when we talk about CMEO, this is initiated by the Ministers of Education in the regions. Right now we have 11 member countries. So ASEAN plus 1, ASEAN plus Timor-Leste. You know the member of ASEAN, including Vietnam, is one of the members. And this organization actually was established 2 years before ASEAN, which is in 1965. So in terms of the age, is quite old. We are mature already. Yeah. So we would like to share the findings from the research, and then based on that, some of the issues we would like to share with you. So we will work together with our colleagues from British Council. How should we, for example, like integrate these skills into the curriculum? That's the one is very challenging, and we'd like to work with you, and your input later on will be very useful. And then also in terms of how we will assess this. There are some findings from the region, but we would like also to get the feeling from maybe some of you. Seems like when Dominic asked you, to raise your hands, like most of you coming from education institutions, I think that's the one that we would like to get feedback from you. So based on that, as you can see, the first background here, that the terms and also the list of the skills can be vary from one country to the other. And I'd like later on to combine those components, those skills, into one page and then see which one among those that we think consider the most important, depending also on the area, the field, the area that we are working at, and also what level. And I don't want to go to detail in terms of the definitions, but maybe more on the the components that we share similarities. In terms of definitions, I think I can just briefly later on I can touch on that. And just a little bit overview so that you can have some kind of understanding how this study is done. So this study was done in 6 countries, starting from Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Philippines. So we identify researchers from each country. We gave them about 3 months to collect data and analyze it. And then based on the research finding, we had a workshop. We organized a workshop in Thailand. And we try to finalize and come up with a model. Because research findings is useful, but sometimes it's still a bit kind of vague. So based on the research finding, we get together and how can we come up with a model so that it will be easier for the reader to understand in terms of how to integrate the skills into the curriculums, into the teaching learning, and also in the assessment. So that's the background of this study. Back to the various definitions. As I said earlier, the names of these skills can be different. In Vietnam, I think life skill is very popular. Some of you also may be mentioning about soft skills. Yeah. But lately we kind of inclined to use transferable skills because these skills can be transferred into different work settings. So regardless of the occupations, but these skills are needed. So when we talk about the skills pyramid, maybe some of us familiar with that, the bottom one, here is where the transferable skills are really locating. For example, like talking about communications, work ethics, teamwork, management. All of these are, regardless of where we are, regardless what type of occupation that we are doing, still needed. And then the middle one, usually talking about the foundations of the professional skills. Can be talking about mathematics, science, maybe IT skills. These are kind of in the middle. But the top one, this is we call it technical skill or professional skill, which is very specific to certain occupations. So someone can be very good at the top, but if the bottom are lacking, this is the issue that we are facing. And I think this moment, based on the discussion with employers, we can see that the industry said that many of our graduates are lacking in these skills. Because maybe we pay attention, but not really enough in terms of how we should inculcate these skills into our teaching and learning. So that's, you can see the components, for example, like paragraph number 3 here. Those are some of the examples, but this is not exhaustive. There are still some more of the skills that we can integrate over here, but at least can give us some ideas. These are one of the transferable skills or life skills that was really adopted in Brunei, for example. Okay, to be more detailed, you could see the one on the left side. This is the one that I just shared in the previous page. And then some more additional, which is attitudes and values. And we could see the attitudes and values, we might interpret it differently. In Vietnam, for example, I don't know whether all of those need to be integrated in our school, or we just need to select the one that we think is the most relevant. For example, in terms of one of them, like talking about piety. In Brunei, this is considered very important because religion is a very important part of their life. So they would like to include this in the teaching and learning. Need to be inculcated in the school setting, on the training setting. But maybe for others, this one not really necessary. So that's why it's nice to see how these countries are listing down all of these components, and we can select according to our preference. Just a bit about the workshop. This is the workshop that we did in Thailand. Basically, we invited the researchers from the 6 countries, and then also we have experts from UK to share with us in terms of how they integrate these skills into TVET, the Technical and Vocational Education and Training. And this is the report. This is open for everyone. If you're interested in getting the copy of this, sorry I didn't bring the hard copy to save the environment, but you could download this website, visit the website, and you can download the whole report. Country report, comparative report, including the models, you could find it from that report. Okay, now let's start from the first one, the first issues that we are facing, which is how we integrate these skills into the curriculum. You know that before we start teaching, start running the education, we need to have the plan, the guide. And how should we integrate in the guide? You could see that different countries are having different approach. For example, like in Indonesia. Indonesia, usually we follow taxonomy Bloom. So when we talk about the affective skills, this is the time when we integrate these transferable skills in the curriculum. Malaysia, they're talking about providing some kind of autonomy to the schools. The central government can provide general guidelines, but the details can be given to the school level. So it can be different from one school to the other. Okay. Talking about in Vietnam, also kind of similar to what's happened in Malaysia. The more detail you could refer to this in terms of the findings. Yeah. And Brunei, now I think we are moving from, we call it separate subject to embedded subject. Before we, for example, like we teach communication skill as one subject. Talking about maybe team building into one subject, entrepreneurship in one subject. But now I think we're moving from that kind of approach into embedded or integrated. So this can be integrated in every course that we are teaching in the vocational technical education. Okay, Philippines more on the contextualizations, and then Thailand would like to link this with the national qualification framework. But you could see that there are some similarities and differences in terms of how we integrate this skill into TVET curriculum. And based on this, if you would like to, I don't know, it's very small, but I think your eyes are still young, maybe you can see clearly. But the one I put the circle here, actually this is supposed to be red circle, but maybe now look like black. You could see this combinations of those skills from 7 countries, including UK, we put into one. And then we group them into 3. The first category is competencies in learning. So what are those skills that can be under competencies for learning? Talking about capacity to learn, problem solving, willingness to take chance, innovation, creativity, critical personality, self-reliance, and so on and so forth. Those are one of the category. The second one is understanding self and others. This is also another way of regrouping it, because otherwise we have a very long list and it's hard to remember or to understand. The last one is dealing with work environment, because we're talking about TVET, vocational technical education, so we're not only thinking of making the students kind of better understanding about the world or improving their knowledge on science, but more also in terms of how will they be able to handle the working environment. So the skills related to work environment is also important. Flexibility, dealing with pressure, work ethics, positive attitudes. These are the third category that we are putting there. How to integrate in the curriculum? One of them that we're planning to have workshop is in terms of mapping. Let's say, for example, we talk about many of you coming from hospitality and tourism, talking about tourist guide, for example. What kind of soft skills or transfer skills needed by tour guide? And if we imagine tour guide, is there any career progressions? When someone changes their career to the higher level, to the managerial level, for example, then the type of skills also will be needed and can be different. So this can be, in terms of the number can be different, but also the level of competencies also can be different. That's the approach that we call mapping, and that's the one that we'd like to share with you later on. Collecting evidences, this is something that right now we are thinking of, that in assessing these skills, through exam, through test, is not a good way anymore. So even though that one still can be continued, but we would like to collect evidences from different sources, using portfolio, maybe ask the student to compile all their works, and then we analyze or we assess based on that. Just to give some kind of familiarization in terms of the mapping, curriculum mapping, the approach that we have. We did some kind of workshops, and I think we do similar like this later on. For example, we talk about those working as a carpenter, the C, then BT is working as the beauty therapy. But this one we're talking about only the skilled workers, not talking about those holding the managerial positions. So when we have a list of transfer skills on the left side, and we ask kind of the participants who can be coming from the industry to assess in terms of what kind and what level of skills needed, you could see there are variations. That maybe one group compared to the other, maybe the assessments are not the same, but at least we could see that there are certain components that they need to have, but also they need a certain level. For example, I'm talking about level 1. Level 1 is considered like poor, and then maybe level 4 is the best or excellence. So based on that, we could imagine if we are training someone to be tour guide, what kind of skills needed and at what level. By doing this, we have a metric that's kind of clear for us when we talk about what kind of soft skill or transfer skills need to be prepared in the school setting. And now move on to the management level. Even though we are talking about the same kind of area, we're talking about carpentry, talking about beauty therapy, but once someone moves to the next level, then the level or maybe the kind of or the components of these transfer skills also can be different. So this is the one that quite fascinating to see this and to work on this. Okay, now we move to the second one, which is how to integrate these skills into the teaching and learning. And this is also very challenging because most of our teachers are still many like following positivist approach, like teacher-centered. When we try to introduce the constructivist approach, that more on the learner center, more using problem solving or real environments, these are it's easy to say, but it's very, very difficult based on our study. After we assess this, even though some teachers already understand about this new approach, but in the implementation at the classroom level are still very challenging. So you could see some of this. Again, when we talk about teaching and learning, there's various issues, various terms thrown out, for example, like problem-based learning, authentic teaching and learning, which is we try to simulate the learning similar to what happened in the industry. Talking about learner center, these are some of the jargon or some of the terms being used, which is very, very relevant to teaching transferable skills. The detail, I think later on you could review and you could download again the report, but just to get some ideas, those are the essence of different type of teaching approaches. So based on that, we try to summarize. This is kind of the map, the conceptual mapping or the models after we discuss during the workshops. So how can we make this kind of approach, designs or activities easier? So you could look at the middle one. So in terms of approaches to teaching, we move from the reductionist or positivist to constructivist, meaning we're providing more opportunity to the students to develop or to build their own understanding. From teacher-centered to student-centered, whether we're planning to embed the subject or stand-alone subject. In terms of methods, we can use project-based, problem-based, competency-based, research-based, or experiential learning. Activities we can mix with different kind of activities, as you can see. Group studies, group discussion, apprenticeships, and so on and so forth. So those are the second model that developed in terms of how to integrate the skill into teaching and learning. And the last part is about how to integrate in the assessment, talking about monitoring and assessment. And we would like also later on to get your feedback. When we talk about this, the most common term being used is continuous assessment, meaning that we don't do assessment only a certain period of time, but we do it even from the beginning until the end. Observations, continuous observation, using portfolio. Ask the student to develop the portfolio and we can assess using rubric, for example. So those are some of the areas. You can see maybe slightly difference in terms of the way the researcher explained it in the report. But those are the kind of commonalities that we found from the study. Based on that, we came up with this kind of model. So from the plan to review. So it's kind of a cycle that when we talk about assessing transferable skills, we're not talking about only a point of time, for example, like midterm, like mid-semester and then end of the semester. But we need to do it continuously. We need to observe in terms of behavior, attitudes, and so on and so forth. Back to the teaching, also we're not talking about teaching like more on the teacher center, but how can we engage the students? Maybe how can we make the teacher become the role model of the students? So not touching the cognitive or maybe the psychomotoric level, but more on the affective, which is a different way of approaching it. So if we do all of these continuous assessments, that at the end we need to have some kind of summative assessment, which if necessary later on we would like to give credits, maybe give certificates for this kind of skills. In UK it's even further. I think there's a lot of private agencies who provide the accreditations. So that we can go to that level. But at this moment in this region we just stop at this assessment. But still lacking in terms of monitoring and accreditation in general. So I think this is one that we can look into in the future. Okay, findings. I don't want to repeat. Basically, it's the one I just shared with you. But this is just try to pick. Maybe you could see some of them. That the way we do, the way we teach this is different than teaching technical skill or vocational skills. But in terms of integrating it in the curriculum, teaching, and assessment, I think we can continue discussing further. Okay, let me just go to the next one. Okay, there's some more in the integration of the curriculums. I think it's either separate or integrated. And I think one of the approach using the mapping, I think that later on we would like to share with you to do real workshops so that we can have better understanding. And okay, that's the mapping number 2. Okay, let's move on to the next one. conclusion and recommendation. Basically, this is just to remind everyone, including myself, that I'm also used to be teacher-centered. Yeah. Sometimes when the teacher like to talk, we forget about the students, right? If the student sleeping or playing around, playing with the mobile, we don't realize it because we just thinking about we need to complete the syllabus, we need to complete the content that we have. And this is a challenge because when we are facing with abundance of content that we need to complete in one day, playing around with this kind of learner-centered approach sometimes is very challenging. The time can pass very quickly. So how can we very kind of selective and creative in a way in terms of when we should integrate this, for example, like learner-centered teaching approach. Yeah. Teacher has to be passionate, enthusiastic, knowledgeable. This is just to show because this is very excellent way by examples, not just by teaching or preaching. And as much as possible, we try to integrate in the context of the subjects we are teaching. Okay, so that may be kind of the overall of the study, but the details later on you could download the reports and we can discuss. Now, because I know it's challenging time, I think we need to move around a little bit. And Simon and Sarah and also maybe Dominic would like to, to make everyone kind of excited with this. I think the importance of the skills, we cannot, stress enough. But I think we would like to play around with this type of exercise. I think the audience now getting more and more is exciting. We are thinking of grouping you into 4, if possible, and you can pick your kind of, if you prefer certain partners, go ahead. But we'd like to group you into 4, and then the group number 1 to number 3, we will focus on the mapping, meaning we have a list like the one I'll show you on over here. So this is basically for group number 1 to group number 3. We identify some lists of the components of the transfer skills. But if you think that you need to add on, to add some more that not included in this list, please go ahead. And then we have the 3 type of occupations. I will go back again, the 3 occupations, and each group only need to select 1. And based on that 1 type of occupation, please discuss in the group in terms of the level of competency for all of these skills, this component. In this case, we just make an assumption. The skill is from 1 to 4. This is common in the UK. They follow 1 to 4. 1 is poor, and then 4 is excellent. 2 and 3 is kind of the middle, so 2 moderate and 3 is good. So based on this, we pick certain occupation. But this one actually, when we go back to our own institutions, you teaching certain subject or you are preparing the student for certain occupations, we could discuss and we could develop what type of skill, what components needed, and at what level. I think by doing this, we can kind of go a little bit beyond what we have practiced. In this region, at this moment, we just use checklists, pass, fail, but we don't, and we treat these skills all the same. We don't kind of, separate and dedicate a certain skill for a certain group. Even though actually all are needed, but the emphasis I think need to be highlighted. So that will be maybe the first one. I'll go back again. So the first group will be selecting, maybe just for first group will be, group 1 will be talking about the occupation as theater manager. Among those skills, which one needed and at what level? Number 2, talking about theater technicians. Looking at the skill, the component of the transfer skills, and then select which one and at what level. And then the third one is theater apprentice. And then the last group, this is a little bit different. So we would like also to get feedback from you in terms of how we should assess. I shared earlier based on the experience from the 6 countries, but maybe you have your better ideas, I'm sure, and based on your experience, how should we assess this type of skills? So this may be kind of overall designs of the workshop. Maybe Simon or Sarah or Dominic would like to add on to highlight the workshop. I think that's from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It doesn't matter when essentially you pick the profession of technical manager, technical person, manager and apprentice. It doesn't matter that it's in the theatre and you don't know the theatre. We could have easily picked it to be about manufacturing. So it's to use your, to a certain extent you have to just make assumptions about those various professions as well. But to be clear, what we're really asked you to do is to look at those three levels: a manager, a technical person, and then a young person, apprentice, coming into a various industry or sector, and how you would peg them against those the list that we have. Can we get that back up a minute as well? And then the fourth group is looking at very clearly how do we then assess. And we're going to spend about, how long, Dom, is it going to be? Yeah, we're going to do roughly 10 minutes of discussion in groups, and then each group, if you can nominate somebody in your group, just give some feedback at the end as well. Very brief, 1-2 minute feedback, nothing too detailed, just to get an idea of what you feel about all of this. I'll just hand you over to Don now or Sarah to put into groups.
I think we'll, just to kind of get it moving, we will split the room up a bit, and please feel free to go and sit somewhere else, but if the three tables at the front, if you can take the theatre manager and maybe group together, these three tables here, if you can take a technical theatre technician, if the kind of four tables over there, the lady with the pink jacket, and kind of right at the back, if you take the theatre apprentice, and then the ones that I haven't said, so the three in the middle, if you look at the assessment framework for it, does that sound good? Do you know, so group one, please could you raise your hands? Yeah. So group one? Yeah, if you want to get together or focus on theatre manager. Group two? Yeah, these two tables and these two as well. Group three? That's at the back. You're looking at theatre apprentice. And group four, assessment. It's just this table in the middle, yeah, and then the two people over there with the Mac and the lady behind you.
Excellent. I will flip back and forth wherever you need. At this moment, is this page okay, or you want me to flip to the other page? Yeah? The other one? Yeah. Okay. Huh? Okay, we will just go around just to see how it goes in each group. If you think that combining all of the three will be too big, I don't know, maybe you can scream or maybe regroup into a few. Okay, we just join you and see how it goes.
Thank you very much. Do you have anything to add? Because you were on the kind of second table. Simon? Does your table have anything to add on the transversal skills for technicians? No? Thank you. So managers, who would like to quickly present on what you found?
Là người các nhóm thì là cái tiêu chí gì đấy để đánh giá được phương pháp bơi chùa đo
love of your country. Is that separate?
yeah
Is that transfer skills?
no
It means
and I think he actually changed on that.
anybody else? I agree with you too. I think
In order for you to operate all those machines, you need to have a very good understanding of IT.
So, like the general occupation, a transferable skill, general for the industry According to this level, for example.
Skill and what they might need at that level. Ex-occupation, but what does a young person needing coming into your industry or your industry or any industry need to have in terms of transferable? And maybe pick like 3 or 4 because we're going to end in about 3 or 4 minutes. Alright. You can put it on this board.
Oh, sure. Yeah, this is most important. Teamwork.
Low score. Those with low score, take it out. Take them out. We just focus on the high one. So we just consider the top one, the priority. That's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
All right then.
Okay, we're done. Finish.
Let's write down the. Oh, you didn't put this all 4. Yeah. This is all 4. What is the level in terms of?
And the level must be like 3 to 4.
So 3 to 4.
3 to 4, right?
Oh, you are please write down.
No, I mean it's not all 4. Yes, but actually you can say like leadership is for everybody is also important, right? For the manager. Is it? I don't know.
Other skills, mostly 1s and 2s, yeah?
Okay, please pick any of the leader and some.
Is there anyone here working in theatre occupation?
I think theatre doesn't really matter. It's about the management, managerial skills. So I think we're all from the institution rather than companies. Right? How many? It's a global world. It's a bit more,
This theatre promotes things for national or
Because it's a theatre management.
Yes.
because the British scale is one excellent or is adequate. Yeah.
So this 4 is the best.
Yeah.
1 is the lowest. 4 is excellent. Put it there.
So do you think shall we put 2 for the patriotism?
3.
Đánh giá cho từng đối tượng một. Còn bên nhóm mình là đưa ra các tiêu chí để đo lường và đánh giá các cái kỹ năng. Đối tượng là có 3 đối tượng. Không giả sử ví dụ như mình tiêu chí đánh giá một cái cốc về chẳng hạn này thì nó sẽ là chiều dài của nó bao nhiêu, chiều rộng bao nhiêu, độ bóng bao nhiêu, độ ấy. Đấy là tiêu chí. Giả sử như là kỹ năng giao tiếp thì thứ nhất là người ta sẽ đánh giá là kỹ năng giao tiếp theo kiểu như là đối với người trẻ như nào, hay đối với người già, hay đối với cái lớp là mới đầu là mới đấy thì đấy là để ứng xử với nhau hoặc là trả lời hoặc là thì là đấy là cái cách để chắc là không phải sâu đi đã hẳn tiêu chí thế như em đâu, nhưng mà chắc là chỉ đến phương pháp thôi. Vâng, đấy phương pháp thôi chứ không đến em phần kỹ thuật phần gọi là phần chuyên sâu về chuyên. Không, như phương pháp thật sự nó phải đưa ra cái phương pháp để đo lường cái phần đấy.
Ví dụ như là phỏng vấn, vâng đấy, cái giao tiếp này, rồi là đánh giá về kỹ năng thì thông qua là kiểm tra về trình độ năng lực thông qua bài kiểm tra, hoặc là cho thử nghiệm theo kiểu như là lập dự án hay cái gì đó để mình thuyết trình hay là trình bày gì đó. Đấy là phương pháp, mình chỉ đi như dạng.
Thì bây giờ em cũng sẽ đi theo đúng cái
em đưa đến cấp độ 1 thì nó là gì?
Đấy phải chia ra 3 đối tượng. Xong rồi mới cần là cái mình cứ giả sử thế nhé. Mình giả sử cái phải chia ra làm 3 đối tượng.
là cái khả năng giao tiếp.
Giao tiếp thì như ở đây mình sẽ có là đối tượng 1 tức là cái manager nhé.
Quản lý.
Đây là technician. Apprenticeship. Ra kỹ năng giao tiếp thì đánh giá bằng kiểu gì, như chị Hải chị nói là sẽ làm phỏng vấn đúng không?
Không, manager em phải khác, manager là phải khác. Manager là phải dạng như là đưa ra những cái lập một kiểu như là có thuyết trình hoặc là mang tính dự án rồi.
Khả năng giao tiếp thì kiểu như là họp gặp nhật như này hay là cái trao hỏi hay là cái gì đấy thôi.
Khả năng giao tiếp đối với manager thì nó cao hơn chị ạ. Đấy đang nói thì em để ở cái độ cao. Cấp độ cao thì nó là dạng bài thuyết trình rồi. Nó dạng như
trình bày
đề án, khả năng diễn thuyết đấy, ý đây như thế,
khả năng diễn thuyết
đấy, nó là cao hơn rồi.
Không, nhưng mà phải xem là nó có, tại vì trong kia nó rất nhiều thứ đấy,
Vâng.
Không, nhưng mà mình chỉ
Mình
tương
làm
đối nhanh ạ,
tương đối
một
tay
thời gian ngắn mình không ấy được đâu, mình chỉ tóm thôi.
Chứ không
Thế là
biết
đấy
được
là
tất cả những cái kia được.
em cứ như em là về diễn thuyết hoặc là thuyết trình một cái
Thuyết trình nên sẽ nói thuyết trình cho thuyết thì
rồi.
thuyết trình này, phỏng vấn thì đầu xin việc,
phỏng vấn
tức là ứng xử, cái này gọi là ứng xử.
Mình nói ngắn gọn thôi, một thời gian ngắn mình không
trình bày kỹ thuật.
đối với
discussion in 1 minute.
Because they will ask because everything is very important for us. But I think maybe if you're thinking about top 3 as a manager, instead of presentation, planning, and
the skills, the transversal skills towards the top of the list were far more important than the ones towards the bottom. We looked along and it almost descended downwards. We had a lot of pause towards the top because we felt that in a technician role, particularly in the theatre, safety, communication and knowledge of the products and services were absolutely vital. So, and we felt that as it went down towards the lower end of the list, items such as self-presentation, entrepreneurship, leadership were maybe not as important in the short term. So that was our thinking. We had pretty much an open discussion around the table, and I think it's fair to say that most views were taken into account, and we feel quite comfortable with the way that we ranked these transversal skills. Thank you.
we have got lots of people from Yemen, South Africa, Tunisia, Vietnam, and UK. And then we talk about the skills of a manager to have, actually, rather than just theater manager. Say, okay, yeah. And we think that, as you see, most of the skill we think that, it should be the top skill as a manager. Communication important, and then I think all teamworking and integrity. But we thought that most of all, those 3 top skills we thought as about communication and then integrity and leadership is key skill. And then maybe on the planning, we thought that skills like strategic and critical thinking is important. And then also the leadership, so inspirational leader, to be an inspirational leader, give a motivation to the employees.
Số 6 thì có tiếng rồi em. Cái mic số 6 kia nó ra đường mic về. Vừa nãy em cắm đường máy này.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Which is like communication and collaboration, critical thinking, teamwork, leadership, planning, self-presentation. Even though leadership is just 2, moderate level, but we think it's quite important for the apprentices to have this kind of the skills. They have to learn how to be a leader somehow. So they learn at the first stages to adapt.
Mine, I guess we guess this kind of that we can share, like collaboration and communication. Yeah, related. They have to know everything related to the workplace. Have to mingle with everybody there. Critical thinking for sure, because they have to analyze something. Not to be a leader, not to be a manager, but analyze something related to the work. Teamworking is really important, and planning as well, and self-presentation, of course. They have to present themselves. Thank you.
It's not only me to present our result of group, but the first I think it's very difficult to assess the transfer skill. But we just think about for example. When we want to measure or assess the communication skill, is for example in the manager level, we can they can present the idea with the high level, but for the internship maybe we use the methods as we interview them some very normal situation, and maybe another member in our groups will explain more the methods or methodology for assess the transfer skill.
Về phương pháp đánh giá đối với các cấp độ quản lý, kỹ thuật viên và những người mới chuyển đổi vào nghề thì
tôi có thể ví dụ như một số các kỹ năng như là kỹ năng về làm việc nhóm. Thì đối với quản lý thì có thể kiểm tra đối với những tình huống trong thực tế quản lý ở cấp độ cấp độ như là quản lý xưởng hay là quản lý của công ty. Còn đối với kỹ thuật viên thì có thể kiểm tra cái khả năng làm việc theo nhóm trong việc xử lý các cái tình huống kỹ thuật. Còn đối với các người mới vào nghề thì có thể kiểm tra trong việc là xử lý công việc theo cá nhân, hoàn thành tốt công việc theo cá nhân, và có thể hơn nữa nâng cao một chút đó là có thể mang tính phối hợp để xử lý những cái công việc thông thường trong thực tế. Đối với kỹ năng về lập kế hoạch thì sẽ đánh giá đối với người quản lý là nhiều hơn, và đối với người quản lý thì sẽ là lập kế hoạch để tổ chức sản xuất, hoặc là đối với của nhà hát thì có thể là tổ chức để mà tổ chức biểu diễn một cái buổi hòa nhạc chẳng hạn. Còn đối với người kỹ thuật viên thì việc lập kế hoạch ở đây là lập kế hoạch về thực hiện những cái công việc mang tính kỹ thuật, xử lý những cái theo quy trình công việc. Còn đối với những người mới vào nghề thì có thể là những cái công việc nhỏ và kiểm tra việc lập kế hoạch thực hiện một cái công việc nhỏ. Còn với góc độ kiểm tra về kỹ năng lãnh đạo thì đối với người quản lý thì sẽ kiểm tra bằng cách là kiểm tra trong những tình huống ra quyết định trong những cái tình huống có thể là khác nhau, để xem xét và người lãnh đạo đưa ra những cái quyết định và có những cái trình bày để phân tích một cách là thuyết phục nhất về cái khả năng lãnh đạo của mình. Còn đối với kỹ thuật viên thì khả năng lãnh đạo là kiểm tra cái khả năng tổ chức sản xuất trong một cái công việc. Còn đối với những người mới vào nghề thì không kiểm tra về kỹ năng này. Ngoài ra thì còn một số các cái kỹ năng khác, ví dụ như là kỹ năng trình bày về ý thức an toàn. Thì đối với ý thức an toàn thì thường kiểm tra đặc biệt là đối với kỹ năng của người mới vào nghề. Còn đương nhiên ở các cấp độ cao hơn thì kỹ năng an toàn thì đối với kỹ thuật viên thì sẽ nâng cao ở cái việc là có thể lập lên những cái tình huống mà nêu ra được những cái khả năng mà có thể xảy ra dễ mất an toàn, để mang tính cảnh báo giúp cho những người thực hiện có thể tránh được. Còn đối với nhà quản lý thì đưa ra những cái chiến lược để mà tổ chức đảm bảo an toàn trong khả năng phạm vi của nhà máy hoặc là của công ty. Còn một số các cái kỹ năng khác, ví dụ như là kỹ năng về đàm phán, thì ở đây kỹ năng đàm phán thì có thể chỉ kiểm tra ở góc độ của đối với nhà quản lý, còn những với các cái cấp độ khác thì sẽ không kiểm tra. Cho nên một số các cái phương pháp về đánh giá kỹ năng nghề mà nhóm 4 đưa ra. Xin lắng nghe cái sự đóng góp và bổ sung thêm của các quý vị đại biểu. Xin hết.
Sorry, I'm going very quick summary of the translation. Her approach to the assessment to those skills based on evidence-based. We need to have a different kind of evidence-based for manager, technician, and apprenticeships. And she gave a series of examples for each of the level managers, what kind of evidence-based should be used for assessment. For technician, what should be, and what for the apprenticeship, what kind of evidence that should be used to assess those skills. And she also mentioned about the negotiation skill, and negotiation skill is more about at managerial level, and as a technician and apprenticeship, it may be less practical and applicable.
workshop to a close, I think we were very keen to include something in the conference on transversal skills, because in all of the global skills gaps or education to employability reports that have been coming out over the last few years, that these transversal skills seem to be consistently highlighted as an area that industry or employers would like to see students develop. And yet it's also an area where there is the least forms of assessment at the moment. So I hope that you found this discussion useful, and the way that we're capturing the feedback from different groups and then the general plenary presentations will feed into the work that Simon and Sarah do in this area. I'd like to...
1 minute wrap up just about this.
Sure. Yeah, go for it.
Just a quick, because I don't want to leave some of the exercise kind of hanging. This practice that you did in terms of mapping, this is the first round. You could see at the beginning we have a long list, right? Long list of these skills. But as you can see, that some of them may get low score. This is the time when we can take out those skills that are considered not really relevant for particular occupations. So at the end, like the group on the apprenticeship over there, that's already the summarized, meaning maybe that's already the second round. After you have a long list, and then many of those maybe get low score, you have the shortest one, you only include those with a point or the score 3 and 4, for example. So this will be the one that later on we will pay attention in terms of integrating it in the curriculum, teaching, learning, and assessment. That is number one. And then you could see the comparison between the management and the technician. You could see the very contrast talking about the self-appearance. Over here, as managers, you need to have 4 because you need to look decent in front of your customers. While the technician, they don't care about the appearance, just put like 2, for example. This is something that we could see there is a difference in each component in terms of the leveling. And the last one, in regards to the assessment, I just like to highlight. I think this group doing quite well in terms of introducing observation. We need to observe in terms of how the students perform. But in reality, that sometimes can be very challenging. Can we imagine we have 50 students, have different components, how should we assess, how should we observe them? So one of the maybe hints that we can, or maybe help that we can use is we need to develop a rubrics. Rubrics basically is descriptions or metrics, if you like to call it, a list of those skills, and then each component we can describe at what level. Level 4 will be what. And then this can be done by self-assessment, peer assessment, or teacher assessment. So at the end we can combine. If also we can have an idea about having some kind of portfolio, that's the one I found out from the finding, that's also something to consider also. Because portfolio kind of give us better picture in terms of the skills or the competencies of our participant or our students. So that's, I hope that you enjoy the practice, and if anything that you'd like to share with our team here, please anytime just approach us. Thank you.
I can ask you to show your thanks to the 3 speakers for the panel. Very much. So there's now a tea and coffee break until 3:30, and then we're back in this room for the final plenary session of the afternoon. Thank you.